Why hello there, welcome to this video. Today we will be exploring the possibility that everything you, a hypnotized, indoctrinated, and bamboozled denizen of modern Western civilization have ever been taught about science, history, and the very nature of the world itself, is a lie.
The FEMA plans to imprison American citizens have generated a lot of interest around the country in locating the potential prison camps throughout the country. These may be facilities currently being used as prisons, such as those you saw earlier, or prisons that are being built supposedly in the name of the war on drugs, or facilities that have other uses but which could be quickly used to detain large numbers of people, such as this Amtrak facility in Beech Grove, Indiana. We're standing now in the main parking lot, which doesn't look too sinister. At this level, it is a very large parking lot, fenced on all sides by fence topped by barbed wire. It also has these electronically operated turnstiles. There is also a surveillance camera, just like we saw at the FEMA facility, pointing out to the parking lot, and a helicopter windsock. All of these apparent security measures are particularly unusual here, because this is a very low crime area, and this facility is nothing but an old train repair station with nothing in it worth stealing. In this portion of the parking lot is a brick building, suitable for processing, next to a gate that leads right out to the railroad tracks, and all of this is contained inside a fully fenced area, now 3 layers deep in fencing at this point. This U.S. Air Force train indicates federal and military involvement. Facing the opposite direction, you can see that this area, too, is a very large fenced area with railroad track running the length of the fence and plenty of warehouses. This facility was supposed to have closed in June of 1993, yet instead several $million in federal funds have been spent on supposed renovations over the past 2 years. Helicopter windsocks and markers are evident throughout the property. This small building is the only way into a particular fenced area. Inside this building we see more of the motion-activated detectors, electronic turnstiles, and prison bars. All of the renovations to this property have involved putting in new fencing, electronic turnstiles, concrete flooring in unused warehouse buildings, and putting in large gas furnaces on buildings that were never heated any time in the past 20 years. Outside this building is fencing and a cattle run section of fence, all topped by barbed wire, pointing inward, not to keep people out, but to keep people in. This was common throughout the facility, particularly the new fencing that had been erected. Inside the fenced area on the other side of the building, you'll see signs that say Red Zone, right up next to the railroad tracks that run the length of the fenced area. Next to the Red Zone sign, you can see closely numbered markers on the fences that are too closely spaced to be parking markers, just as if they plan to have people line up to board the trains. Here's a helicopter marker on the power lines outside the facility, indicating expected helicopter traffic, and again, another tall radio antenna. Looking around, you can get an idea of how huge this place is and how many people it could contain in its fenced-in area. In yet another fenced area, we see a large warehouse building at the end, with the electronic turnstiles in front of it. The building is one that has a new concrete floor, and its doors and windows have all been blocked. Outside, there are new gas pipes. Even as we were filming, a black helicopter flew over us, observing what we were doing, which has happened many times when we have been at the facility.
Could it be possible that the hundreds of FEMA camps which have been built across the United States in the last few decades aren't simply emergency readiness facilities, but are actually detainment facilities to be used for interring U.S. citizens during some yet unknown future event? Whispers and theories circulate among small groups suggesting that these camps have capabilities far beyond what the public has been led to believe. Some individuals claim to have witnessed unusual activity near these camps, leading to speculation about their true purpose and potential use during times of crisis.
Concentration camps.
Right.
And we can say all day, we'll never do that. It'll never happen. Well, it will happen again. It's going to take something severe to happen, but it's just a cycle that we have in times of war, you know.
Right.
We've had concentration camps in this country. Of course, we have the Japan incident, or the Japanese descendants.
Right around World War II. And it was, if, you know, people were like, well, if it wasn't possible, that's a perfect example. Mm-hmm. They did house and torture and put in slave camp and whatever else needed to be.
Did they torture?
I
just thought they just threw him in a holding cell. Well, like a camp, but like I didn't think there was any kind of like bad stuff going on.
That's just
wrong.
No, that's just my intuition. There's probably
speculation on it.
Yeah,
gotcha.
When it comes to this kind of stuff, I just think they're all out to get us. But if it was done once, what's to say it won't happen again?
Right. That's essentially what I'm saying. I was just trying to give some like back history, like, you know. Even though I'm white, you know, I have Cherokee descendants from me, so...
And I have Jewish descendants, so I'm fully aware of what the Holocaust was.
Italian as well.
Pizza bagel.
You didn't get that.
Pizza bagel.
But yeah, I mean, when they did the Trail of Tears back in the day, you know, in the early development companies, they rounded up all the Cherokees and some of the Seminole Nation, and they just sent them back into Oklahoma. They were just like, no, we want this land. Get the hell out of here. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. So essentially what got me hook, line, and sinker were videos showing all kinds of like what looked to be no longer in use Army bases that somehow they had a railroad somehow tied to it. They had giant gated fences that had barbed wire pointing in.
Yeah, that's always interesting, right? It's pointing in,
just
pointing out.
Inside,
we don't care. Go ahead, yeah, come on in all you want.
I was pulled to the side road, which was a new cut gravel dirt road in front of a business, a builder supply business, actually Top-Notch Builder Supply in Madison, Georgia. To my right, this was previously was a soybean field, and this little new cut road divided this field, and the right side of the road was filled with, which I thought was portable toilets. I never looked at them that close. Same in color, maybe black, but which was an odd color. And I was sitting there going over my notes, and a van pulled alongside of me that turned out to be the property owner. And he greeted me, and he was by himself, and so we had a good little dialogue there, and I asked him about the field of black boxes. What were they? Because I'd never seen anything like that, and his statement was that if he told me, I would be one of few people in Madison, Georgia that knew about them. And he says they're disposable coffins, I believe he told me. And he says there's 100 at that time. He said there was 125,000 there, and they were stacked. He told me 15 high. I asked him who owned them, and he stated that the CDC owned them and that they were leasing his land for storage. And he said his brother worked with the CDC in Atlanta and had been asked by the CDC to do a 3-year extension to place temporary morgues all across the nation.
Why are they letting it happen? Why do you think the government is allowing the border to be so porous? And why are they resisting when Texas tries to do something about it?
Well, I always worry when we're trying to understand what's happening and the information is not being shared with us. You have to ask yourself the question of how many separate things are in play, right? Before I went to Panama, I thought there was a migration of people. Now I think there are two. One of them's clearly a migration, and the other one could well be an invasion. So if I know that there are two things, then I can put them in two categories, and I can ask myself the question, why is this being allowed and why is that being allowed? The consensus, maybe consensus is too strong, but the belief amongst many who have been on the story of the migration for years now is that this is a ploy to create voters, Democratic voters. And I don't think that's impossible. I think that's probably playing a role. I don't know how realistic it is. I don't know whether or not it is clear that migrants necessarily carry the likelihood of voting blue that the blue team imagines. But anyway, I think that that's a plausible explanation in part, but I don't think it really covers it. There are other hypotheses that are darker. There is talk about the possibility of trading citizenship for military service. I think that's a very frightening prospect, but I didn't invent the idea. It has been discussed, and the problem is that to the extent that we saw things like the vaccine mandate drive out the skeptics from the military, this process would also bring in a lot of people into military service who would have more reason to follow immoral orders than a citizen soldier who had been American their whole life. In other words, if the power structure is granting you citizenship, which you want, in exchange for your obedience, then what is it that would cause you to say no? So if you wanted a force that was capable of acting on behalf of tyranny against Americans, then a force that doesn't have a deep history with the rights of being an American, that doesn't have a long-standing allegiance to people within the country, that force would be potentially more compliant, and that worries me.
That should worry you. I really didn't consider that until you just said that. But my thought about this idea of the military turning on the citizens was always, but the military is citizens. And many of them are deeply patriotic and unlikely to do something like that. But if they did swap out immigrants, and they did do that, holy shit.
This is exactly...
Then you have a real coup.
This is what spooks me, is that in thinking about the various scenarios 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, I would have said, I fear that somebody is going to issue immoral orders to the military, but I'm convinced that the military will divide over them, that there are those who will carry out immoral orders and there are others who won't.
And at the same time, there's a senator, I think from Massachusetts, that introduced a bill to ban what they call paramilitary training, which is just training with firearms, like to get better at them.
Right.
So the idea is you have a right to keep and bear arms, but you can't be good at them because you can't practice.
So if you imagine, in my naive state a few years ago, the idea was, well, you have a very well-armed populace. You have a military that's likely to be divided about immoral orders. I don't like the sound of that, but I don't think that it's a slam dunk that the tyrants win, because the part of the military that's not going to follow immoral orders and the citizenry that will fight to defend the republic, that's a pretty powerful force. But then you have vaccine mandates, which force out most of the people who are independent-minded from the military. And then you have the idea that migrants might be granted citizenship in exchange for military service. And
has that been introduced anywhere, or is this just a complete hypothesis?
No.
The Army and Air Force are looking to immigrants to overcome recruiting shortfalls. They've ramped up their marketing, including on social media, to entice legal immigrants to enlist. They're also using recruiters with similar backgrounds to appeal to potential recruits. But the biggest draw for migrants is the promise of a fast track to citizenship, plus jobs and education benefits. Both the Army and the Air Force have said they will not meet their recruiting goals this year.
Well, I suppose this is enough food for thought for now. In the words of Aristotle, it is the mark of an intellectual to be able to hear a new idea without having to believe it. But before we part ways, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Your support keeps this channel alive, so thank you for being part of this amazing community. Keep the notifications on so you never miss an upload. And until next time, take care and stay awesome.